What's going on, everybody? Yeah, looks kind of funny. I'm filming through the wheel, but so be it. It's Halloween now, and we haven't been raptured yet. If we have, this place looks exactly like the place I was in the other day. Oh man, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's just say the full moon peaks around 2 p.m. Pacific time. Couple of things. One, had a weird dream, and prior to that, a disturbing vision. Now, how do I differentiate between a vision and just a thought that I just conjure up in my own mind? A vision, like the one I had of Shambhala about a dozen videos ago or so, is almost kind of forced into my mind. That's why people call them downloads. That is pretty accurate, I would say. Now, this vision was rather disturbing in a very profound way. So, I don't want to scare anybody, but I just wanted to let you know that. But let me talk about the dream first. Uh, I was in some kind of rural setting with other people, and we were all trying to get to like some specific mountain. And they were all afraid of something. They were all afraid of something that was coming like from the sky. But I couldn't figure out what. They wouldn't tell me. And I started seeing all kinds of military vehicles go on these dirt mountain roads. They were like people carriers and transporters and things like that. They weren't weaponized vehicles, they were more just like trucks transporting people. And something would happen in the sky. It would kind of turn this gray, murky color, this kind of brownish gray, really ugly color. And when that happened, people started to become very disoriented and they wouldn't know what's going on. And this happened to me, and it would also have physical effects, physical health effects on people. I remember when this murky color like appeared in the sky, I suddenly found myself unable to breathe properly, which is odd because I still feel that way after I woke up, so it could be related. And I do have asthma too, so. And so they were just, I saw people just walking around aimlessly in circles. I saw a compass going around in circles. I saw people just like walking off bridges to their death, and like people just unable to control their own minds, basically. And so we would have to get to this mountain as soon as possible when this thing appeared. And we got there, and it was some kind of subterranean chamber. It was some kind of underground city that we were trying to get to. And we got there. And that was basically the end of that. So then, prior to that, I started seeing the first thing I saw was a gas like planet. It looked like a gas giant, but it was inhabited by a species. I remember seeing these like metallic tubes. They were massive that would traverse the entire interior of the planet. and they were electrical, they were conducting electricity, or it was some kind of power source or something. And I would see these beings in the clouds, in the dust clouds of this gas giant, floating around um, in these kind of oval like transparent transportation systems. And they would just float around these electronic rods or whatever they were. They had this like milky skin that was like kind of, oh, they're really hard to describe what they look like. But there was a lot of beautiful colors there. It was all kind of like this light brown. And there was just maroon and all these other beautiful colors that this planet was made of. And then the scene changed suddenly. And this is kind of reminiscent of the movie Matrix, but it was very different also. So, the first thing I see was one of my family members, well, a very close person, okay, coming out of a silver egg looking pod. And this pod opened up, and she came out, and she gave me this very Mona Lisa like smile. And she looked very unhealthy, very pale and sick. And she came out of there, and I noticed inside the pod there was a bunch of screens. The screens would envelop the entire interior of the pod in a 360-degree angle. I noticed other pods. I was in a room. It was kind of like a laboratory warehouse type of setting. It wasn't massive, but it was substantially large. And there was other pods, and some of them were open, and some of them were closed. And the people sometimes would be awake in these pods, and they would walk about. They weren't forced to be in. They were, but they weren't. It was strange. I saw other people that looked like they were in hospital beds, and that though they were asleep, they looked like they were in a comatose state, and they were not. There weren't any screens around them or anything like that. But then there was other people that were also like on the sort of bed, and they were attached to some kind of machine that came over their faces. So my family member then proceeded to walk towards this individual that was in a lab coat, and he started signaling to her these hand gestures of some kind. And it almost seemed like she was in like a sleepwalking state, like she was hardly aware at all. Like she wasn't very lucid. It was more like she was kind of just under remote control or something. It was really hard to describe. And so, after he signaled these hand gestures, she would walk back to her pod and then just be immersed in these screens. And so I then began to understand that these screens that they were looking at were their avatar bodies that they would be looking at in the simulated world. So just like the movie Avatar. So there was a reciprocal relationship between the body that they would be experiencing on the earth and in this pod. It was a snake feeding its own tail. That's what I kept seeing, is that they were self cannibalizing one another. So when this person in the pod would kind of experience the life on the avatar of the avatar, on the surface, but there was a huge time differential. So the avatar on the surface in the simulation would be experiencing, for example, 500 lives and would go through an entire cycle, but the person in the pod, the other you, your twin, would only experience a single, like it would be a single lifetime. And so this process worked like this. So while they're in the pods, these people in lab coats would actually come around and inflict physical pain on the bodies in the pods, and that physical pain would kind of quantumly leap into this avatar here, where it would transpire and it would turn into either emotional pain here, or it would turn into a disease, or it would turn into physical pain here as well. So, and then I was seeing like how these avatar bodies, they reach the end of a cycle, and the way they would reset it, it really didn't matter one bit. They could throw an asteroid, they could explode the sun, they could just nuke the whole place. It was completely irrelevant, the matter in which they reset the avatar matrix, because it was all basically fake. It was fake, and yet the pain is very real, which is how it was meant to be felt and experienced. So when they would reset the surface, that the person version of you on the surface would then proceed to switch roles with the consciousness that is in the pod. The pod then, the one that was in the pod for those 500 lifetimes or whatever, would then come to the surface and live the lives in the avatar. So they would reverse roles. You understand what I'm saying? And the good news here was that I was seeing a substantial number of people kind of just exiting the whole realm altogether. But they would go back to the very beginning. So it was a loop, it was a cycle. So once they destroyed the avatar world, it would start all over from the so-called downfall of man, from the so-called Adam and Eve biting the apple of forbidden fruit. That's where it would begin again, the cycle. Having said all that, take that with however you wish, guys. We gotta, I personally know and believe from my personal experiences that we are sovereign and free souls, and that we are loved unconditionally and eternally, and that there's nothing to fear. However, we can't discount the very real possibility that there are sickening and twisted experiments going on with consciousness. So you could have, don't assume that there is one singular thing taking place where we are. You could have, remember, every soul is on a unique personal journey. So everyone could be experiencing something completely different than the person next to you. So you and your neighbor could have incarnated here from another universe. You could have come here directly from the womb of eternal creation, from God. Another person might have come from a pod and reset in the cycle. Another person might be an alien in disguise, a robot, blah, blah, blah. Anything is possible. I encourage you to think outside of Saturn's matrix cube, because eternity has eternal possibilities. With eternal possibilities, we have to take everything into consideration, including something as ludicrous as this disturbing vision that honestly I wish I didn't have, but I did. That's it, guys. If we get raptured, could you hit me up? Let me know what it's like over there. Because I want to go too. I'm really getting tired of this shithole, to be honest. If you get raptured, let me know, guys, please, okay? Thanks.